Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we are going to be continuing on with our Swift programming tutorial series, and in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at structures in Swift. Now previously we took a look at classes, the self keyword, and methods. Now we're actually going to take a look at structures and how those work. Now, as you recall from our video on reference types versus value types, stack memory versus heap memory, structures are value types. So that means when we assign a value or create an instance of a value type, that actual value is stored directly in memory, not an address in memory like a class or or other reference type would be. Okay. Structs are actually very heavily used in Apple's new UI framework called Swift UI, which, if you noticed on my channel, I think it's 59 videos on at the current moment. So structures are very important to understand because they are a fundamental part of developing apps using that technology, right? So a struct is generally used for small amounts of data, like a point or a simple contact or something. Structs are also very commonly used to store data retrieved from an API call over the network. So again, structs are very important to understand if you want to do something like that. You could use a class for it too, but generally structures are used because they're more efficient in that regard. So let's go ahead and actually create a struct and see what it looks like. Well, in your person Swift file that I have here, I deleted the class person because I want to create a struct for person now. All right. And to do that, we can say struct, the struct keyword, the name of the struct, person, and then open it up with a opening curly bracket, and then close it with a closing curly bracket, which Xcode will do for you. Now, inside of our struct, we are going to give our properties. So var first name string, var middle initial character, var last name string. Okay. Now, why did I stop here after we created our properties? Don't we need an initializer? Well, that's another nice thing that you get with a structure, and that is the structure goes and creates your full initializer for you. Okay? It goes and creates that initializer with first name, middle initial, last name, or whatever all of your properties are called. It creates that constructor for you. So if we save this, and we go back to the navigator, project navigator, and we go into our main Swift, and we try to, you can see we have our person and all that stuff. Well, first off, we don't have our full name method, so let's go ahead and get rid of these lines of code here. If we try to build this code, it works just fine. And that's because we have all of our properties here. We're given all of our parameters and everything. What if we try to create just a new object for person? Well, we can do this by saying var person equals person, the name of the struct. And then when we try to open up the initializer, we get our initializer. Now, we only get one initializer in the case of our struct because it only generates one constructor for us. It generates that constructor with all of your properties in it, but it does not generate an empty one. So if you want an empty initializer in your struct, you have to be the one to do that yourself, okay? Now, the nice thing about initializers is that, as you saw with our initial person object we had when we created our class instance of person, it still accepted it. And we didn't have it in the exact order that it has in our code completion. We had first name, last name, and then middle initial. In fact, I believe that's what we had. Let's take a look again. Let's undo our deletions here. Keep going. Okay. Yep. Okay, actually, no, we did have the middle initial. So I initially thought we didn't, but we do. But we did have first, middle, and last. So this works perfectly fine, right? We'll just go ahead and keep this. We'll go ahead and keep this, our initial person. But you can see the syntax is exactly the same as with a class. Now, what about our method? What about our method for returning the full name of our person? Does the struct support methods just like a class does? Yes, actually it does. So let's go ahead and create that method. I'm going to go to our Explorer, or our Navigator rather. We're going to Project Navigator Person Swift. I don't want to go in that. I want to go in there. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and create our method that we had previously. We can go ahead and say func get full name with the empty parameters, and we want to return a string like that. And here we can return a string where we have last name, comma, first name, and middle initial. Now, the other thing I want to bring up about a structure is that they are immutable. So if you want to change, or rather, you can make a structure immutable, and to do that, all you need to do is change var to let, and there you go. You have an immutable struct where you cannot change the properties of your struct after you initialize them. Okay? If you need to, if you need a method that will modify your properties and they're still var, the struct isn't immutable, generally you're going to want to mark your method with the mutating keyword. And let's take a look at how that works. So to do that, we can say mutating func, and we'll say set first name with a first name string. Okay, and then we can have self dot first name equals first name, like that. If we want to be able to change the last name, we can say mutating func set last name colon string self dot last name equals last name. And for the middle initial, mutating func set middle initial character self dot middle initial equals middle initial, like that. All right. So those are our methods for mutating the value of the current instance of a struct. So let's go ahead, and how do we call these then? Well, let's go to our main struct, or our main class, or our main file, I should say. Yes. Main Swift. Okay. So here we have our person, and we can say person dot so you can see we can reference our properties directly as in accordance with our autocomplete options here, first name, last name, whatever, but you shouldn't modify the properties using you shouldn't modify the properties of a struct in this way. It's not recommended. You can, but it probably shouldn't. We have our get full name method, so let's call that. All right. So var full name equals and then we can say person dot set. So we have set last name, set first name, and set middle initial. So here we can say, let's say we want to get rid of the H in Sarah. We can do Sarah like that. In fact, I believe my set middle initial method is spelled incorrectly. So let's go back in there real quick. it is going to bug me if I do not change it. Okay, so it is being spelled correctly. My screen reader is just pronouncing it weird. All right. All right, we'll say person dot set last name. We'll say the last name is now going to be, let's say, Willis. Willis, like that. And then we can also set the middle name. Person dot set middle initial. Here we can say the middle initial is going to be Z. Now we can print our full name that it was before. Or rather, even, we can just say, we can say print person dot get full name. All right. And in here we can say print full name, like that. Save it, run it. And now you can see we get our initial full name. And then after we change the properties, now we get the new full name. Pretty neat stuff. So to review, structs are value types. There are, when you assign the instance of a struct and all that, it gets saved directly to the variable, not the memory address to the instance, like a class would be. Classes do not create an initializer for you. You have to do that yourself. Structs do create a single initializer, and that is an initializer that uses all of the properties you define. Structs do support functions. They support methods, just like classes do. And instances of a struct are stored on the stack, not on the heap. So keep that in mind as well. Thank you all so very much for watching this video on structs. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.